If a media is weak, then the country and the government will also be weak, because what makes people to work properly because they are guided is media. So media has important roles. This is something I wanted to acknowledge. In this talk, we are actually required to look at certain things. It talks about what responsibilities should the media house and journalists take when disseminating information. And also we have to look at how the media can promote peace and reconciliation. And then we have to talk about the challenges that are faces media in the country. Freedom of expression is not always free because there are limitations attached to it. A country, a responsible government, has the right to regulate that freedom of expression, especially when it comes to things that are impinging on national security or national policy. A journalist is someone who can expose the bad things that are done by a certain group. And again, a journalist must be someone who protects the communities from getting to loggerhead among themselves. And that's why the freedom of expression is given some limitation. If we see the experience we have here in South Sudan, and especially on the wake of 15 December coup attempt, we have found that what our journalists are supposed to say here is a replicate of what is being said in the Western world. And you know, the Western world has picked up the issue that is completely contrary to what we have seen. Those of us who were here in Juba during the 15th of December. The Western world says there is no coup. And some journalists here in Juba, they say also there was no coup. And if we ask them to convince us if there was no coup, then what was happening on the 15th of December? They will not convince anybody. Now, if you look at that kind of behavior, you will find that we are even trying to westernize our duties and the national duties and the rights we have here. We cannot westernize them because at the end of the day, we are a sovereign nation. We should have our own way of doing things because even the freedom of expressions goes with the cultures of the people. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've seen you people writing about the SPLM faction in Juba. You have written this, especially the print media. Is there any responsibility in that? Because until 15th of December, the very people who tried to engineer the coup d'etat were the people that were already removed on the 23rd of July 2013. So what is there now that we have faction called SPLM, SPLA in opposition in Ethiopia, and you have also factions in Juba? This is a type of very irresponsible reporting. If you are doing that, then you are not with the ethics that are required for a journalist to oversee. Because there is no faction of SPLM in Juba. There is SPLM in Juba. The SPLM which is leading the government is here in Juba. And this is a simple thing. You don't need any more freedom of expression to do this. You have done that. And we think is ignorant actually. Because if anybody is ignorant, you don't have to be bothered much. The challenges are actually attached to the fact that the two laws, very important laws, are not passed yet. The National Security Law and the Media Law, the Media Bill. If the two laws are passed, then the national security guys will be able to know the area of their operations, what is supposed for them to do and what is not supposed for them to do. You have seen some things that have happened, including Radio Bakita was shut down or is still now being closed. And last time when I was asked about this, I tried to look at what has led into Radio Bakita being closed down. And I realized they have already traded the apology. Michael Makuei is a lawyer. He knows that when you apologize in anything that you do, you waive your rights to continue to say that I was in the right side of the law. By submitting apologies simply because they have talked as if Juba is controlled by the rebels, and the national security came in simply because it was impinging on the national security law or national security duties. Also, let us not forget, because there are Criminal Procedures Act in 2008 that cover a number of things, including what is actually in the media. There are certain behaviors in the media that are covered under 2008 Criminal Procedures Act.
The document did not, the bills did not disappear in the Ministry of Justice, but somewhere else. This is why you are journalists. You are supposed to follow up and find your own news. You come and look for news from us. You are supposed to search for news, not the news to search for you. So it is up to you now to find out where these bills lie. Anyway, I went to the office of the president on Friday, and probably this may be what brought all this. It's good. This is good news. If it is signed tomorrow, that will be the best news to be heard tomorrow. And after all, what is journalism? To me, journalism, in simple words, is the art of disseminating information to the public. How you do it is the question. How you do it, it is said that you must do it first in accordance with your ethics, with the ethics of your profession. If you are all journalists, if you are all trained journalists, you know what are the ethics of your profession. And if you don't know it, then you are not a journalist. This is one. Number two, yes, in the course of your dissemination, the information that you pass must be credible, it must be reliable, must be responsible, and must be accurate. And be ready to account for it. And you must be ready to be accountable. This is, in short, what you are supposed to do. My first concern is that, yes, you are all journalists. And there is freedom of journalism. You are now happy that the media bills will be signed and they are coming out. By the way, these media bills have only come out to regulate. There is no legal vacuum up to now, which we can say. We cannot say that there is a legal vacuum now, before the signing of these laws and so forth. I say there is no legal vacuum because all the laws, they regulate, but when it comes to offenses are governed by the penal code. Our penal code is very clear. There is a provision for libel, there is provision for defamation, there is a provision for character assassination, and so forth. All these are offenses to do with you as journalists. And they are there. They will not be invented with the signing of the law. They are already there. You are very lucky none of you has been taken to the court up to now. Yes, I say you are very lucky because none of you has been taken to the court up to now. For your information. Brothers and sisters, there is need for you to know that South Sudan is the place where there is absolute freedom of journalism. I say it is absolute because can they look at our neighbors? Are your colleagues in the neighboring countries enjoying the same freedoms which you have? Do they write all these things which you write here? I doubt if that is happening. Let us go to the first world where we imported all these, our so-called modern principles of democracy, of freedom. Are these freedoms in the West? Go to Britain. There are 33 laws which are governing media. Have you ever heard of any media house or any newspaper insulting Queen Elizabeth or the Prime Minister? These are happening here in the South. But we just push them aside. And we take, me personally, I take you for people who are new in this particular field. And this is why sometimes I'm very harsh with these old journalists. Because they know whatever they do it knowingly. But for me, I do excuse, most of you here are young journalists. And I do excuse you simply because I believe that, yes, some of you might have been misled by the big boys. This is exactly the situation. Even me personally, I would have taken you, some of you, to the court when you refer to me as an arrogant minister.
Yes.
When you refer to me as an arrogant minister, it is a personal
attack.
And I can take you to the court and you will be made to compensate me a compensation that you will not be in a position to pay. And at the end of the day, people will say, this is the situation. Don't think that these things which you do are not known to some of us. But we brush them aside because for other considerations. Yes, there is our constitution gives you the right of freedom, the right of expression, but according to the law. According to the law. It's not absolute. You know what happened? America is the first world, it is the mother of the world, or is it the father of the world? In America, are there any freedoms? That colleague of yours who decided to leak out some information and was arrested, Britain wanted to arrest him and send him to America, and he had to escape to Russia. You know. So what is it now? And then the same people do export to us all these rights and freedoms and say, these are rights of freedom. Don't touch the journalists. This is not true, ladies and gentlemen. We should understand that we are, even though we are a third world country, we should not be turned into a test ground by the first world to come and test their principles which they have not accepted in their own countries. Mumkin. That is not acceptable. I faced the British ambassador on Friday. He was asking me about Radio Bakita. Why is Radio Bakita closed? I said, but who are you to come and ask me about Radio Bakita? Are you the one who paying the piper? So you call the tune? Unfortunately, to be frank with you, most of the media houses here are foreign funded. And if they are foreign funded, then the English saying which says, he who pays the piper calls the tune. This is what is happening actually in South Sudan. Because the payer must do what the payer wants. This is the most unfortunate situation. Ya Jama, yes, we can be paid by anybody. But in the first place, you are South Sudanese, and if you are South Sudanese, you are under responsibility as a South Sudanese. You are in charge of it is your duty to make sure that to protect the interests of your nation, to protect the interests of your country, and to protect the security of your country. The fact that you are a journalist doesn't mean that you are denationalized. It means that you are a nationalist. And you are a citizen of this country. You are under duty to protect this country, irrespective of whether you are a journalist or any other profession. This is missing. And this is why sometimes you get a lot of writings, a lot of things being written anyhow, because people want to write. It's not a question of writing, Ajama. First, whenever you are writing or whenever you are talking any FM radio or in any Media, please, put your country first. Put your country first. You must be seen to be nationalists. Otherwise, these freedoms, if we continue to use these freedoms in this way, then this is the time when you find yourself automatically in conflict with the law. Because if you begin to write, and then you begin to step on the toes of Michael Makuei as a person, I will not leave you again. I will take you to the court. And when I take you to the court, what happens? Your other colleagues will say, the government is oppressing the media. Is that correct? That is not correct. The fact that X has erred and he has to face the law does not mean that the media is being oppressed. You should not misuse the freedom given in the name of freedom of media. No. Use your freedom, exercise it according to the law, and you will be protected. You will be protected. I'm here not to oppress anybody, but to ensure that all of you exercise your rights according to the law. And anybody who misuses his powers against you, we will not allow him to do that. But also be very careful. Don't try to misuse that freedom. Because if you misuse that freedom, it will boomerang on you as a person. And by the way, there is need to differentiate between the media and a journalist as an individual. As an individual, you can be in conflict with the government, with the law, which has nothing to do with journalism or with the media houses or anything. So, Jamal, let us differentiate between issues. This is the most important message that I need to tell you. We are not here to do anything other than to ensure that we create the necessary conducive atmosphere for all the journalists, for all the media houses, so that they perform their functions and duties according to the law. Bas. This is all that we are. Yes, we welcome criticism, as stated by Comrade Ateny. We welcome criticism. But what type of criticism? Most of you who are writers now, what you do is a destructive criticism. And this is not acceptable. You cannot go on writing, agitating people against one another, agitating tribes against one another, agitating communities against one another, agitating the people against their government. And then you say, this is freedom of expression. No, this is a destructive criticism. Criticize objectively. Criticize constructively. This is what we want. Because constructive criticism guides the government and guides everybody. It shows the direction. But when you just criticize because you must be seen to be a critic or a critique, this is very unfortunate. And this is what is happening in all the newspapers that I read. And this is what is happening in all these live FM radios that people call directly and they say whatever they want to say. This is what is happening. If this is how we will continue to exercise our rights and freedoms, no, this will never happen that way. If you can go and interview a rebel, and then you come and play that material, you come and play it in your media, in your radio, disseminating it to the people. What are you doing now? And when we arrest you, then you all move in and say, oh, this is a... That is not correct. When you commit such a thing, you are actually disseminating material of the enemy. When you are disseminating the material of the rebels in the country, you are actually agitating the people against the government. Do you think that it will happen? Never. And that has not been happening all over the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us act according to the law. The journalists, like here now, here in this same night which was written by Jibu here, there is a new phenomena which is now appearing for the first time. Here it says, since the crisis started, I hope that you have that paper. Since the crisis started on December the 15th, 2013, the social fabric of the people of South Sudan is at threat. Our unity in diversity was tested, and the unity of the country remains hanging on the balance. The unity of the country remains hanging on the balance. Ya Jama, is there anybody, is there any claim for a new nation or for secession? No. So that the unity of the country is at risk? There is no unity of the country which is at risk. What the rebels want is the power. They want to take over power. They are not demanding secession. They are not saying we are taking Upper Nile to be a nation to be called Upper Nile. And if we are journalists and we begin to write like this, we are actually creating a new situation altogether. And this is unbecoming. Yes, you want us to use our usual words. Yes. This is not acceptable, to add more. It's not acceptable because you are now coming in with a new dimension. When you say the unity of the country is at risk, that it is in question, it means that it is hanging on the balance as the nation is looking forward in restoring the unity of the country. Restoring the unity of the country. Yeah? Media have a significant role to play. What is threatening the unity of the country? It is the authority of the government which is being challenged, not the unity of the country. There is nobody talking of seceding from South Sudan. Now, when you begin to put it like this, you are now creating a new dimension altogether. And if the rebels get it, they will say, this is very good. We are breaking away as Upper Nile. This is what we are after. I think there is need for us to be very, very, in the most important thing, in the media, you must be very careful with your words. Just like in the law. If you are a lawyer, you must properly master your language, being English or Arabic, or both if possible. The same thing in journalism. You must make sure that you use the most appropriate words at the right time. So what I'm saying is that, yes, we must disseminate this information. We collect information. We must disseminate it correctly. But if we begin to misuse this freedom which is given to us, then we will be creating more problems for ourselves as well as for our houses, media houses, and for the government as well. So there is need actually for us to know what are our functions and duties. What are our duties towards our nation? And what are our rights? And how do we exercise these rights? It is important that we know all this. Without this, then we are not journalists. Not that only, but also, Jamaat, there is need for us to come up with a specialized journalism, so that you don't just bump into something that is on which you are not well informed. There is need for us to try to have a specialized journalism so that we avoid certain situations. Otherwise, if we just continue like that, we will find ourselves all the time in conflict with others. Yes, it is through freedom of expression. It is given in the law in the first place. So, it is not taken, it is given. It is given in the law, in your constitution. It is now your duty to exercise it. You exercise it. In the course of exercising it, the Constitution says, exercise it according to the law. And if you are exercising it according to the law, it means that don't step on the toes of others, including the government. Because the government itself is a person. It's a legal person. We say that these freedoms are given to you, the freedom of expression, the freedom of movement, the freedom of all these freedoms. These are rights and freedoms given, but they are exercised according to the law. Yes, it is true, it had been in our plans, but all the plans have been interrupted now. In fact, the media bills started, the first draft of the media bills were prepared when I was the Minister of the then Legal Affairs and Constitutional Development. And it went to the cabinet, from the cabinet to the parliament, and when it went to the parliament, someone among you here decided to write to the president saying that these media bills which have been presented to the parliament now were smuggled in by Minister Michael Makuei, and this was not the bill which was passed by the cabinet. Now the president, upon the receipt of that letter, he directed me to withdraw that document from the assembly. And I withdrew it. By then, and thereafter, I refer it, I send it back to the Ministry of Information. Because the document originally originated from Ministry of Information. I sent it back to the Ministry of Information, and then I left, I was reassigned, I became the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs. Meanwhile, I was there, the document was processed until it went again to the Ministry of, it went again to the Parliament. It went to the Parliament at the time when I was the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs. And meanwhile I was there, there was a provision which was smuggled into the bill, exempting the journalists from prosecution. Yes. There was a provision exempting the journalists from prosecution. And I objected to that provision and it was removed. Because there is no way whereby you will be allowed to write anyhow, and then at the end of the day keep on insulting everybody, hitting left and right, and because you are immune. You were actually given immunity. There is no question of immunity like that. And that provision was removed. So when I became the Minister of Information, thereafter I became the Minister of Information, and the bill was passed. Now when I came to the Ministry of Information, I continued for some time following up the bill until it went to the office of the President and it went back to the Parliament. When it went back to the Parliament, before it could come out from the Parliament, then this crisis came in. And it continued to fluctuate between the Parliament and the office of the President. And thereafter, I became a member of the negotiating team. And as such, I became a permanent resident of Addis and a visitor to Juba. Nobody followed up from there. Every now and then, I come and follow it up and leave it and go back. Now, because of that provision which was removed, some of you started to say Makuei is against the journalists. And when I came to this ministry, most of you, if not all of you, were scared. And they said, Wallahi, it's all the colors. This journalism must finish. Yes. But these are realities. I'm a human being, I know. I was young one day. And we know all this. But what I have to tell you is to assure you that these bills, I will be the happiest when these bills are out. Because with these bills, we will establish the media authority. I will have nothing to do with you again. If it comes out tomorrow, I will call all the media houses to make recommendations on those who will be in that authority, so that you go and regulate your problems over there. The same thing we will be setting up the broadcasting corporation where the radio and TV with the Hakuma Desatu will go. And this is the time when I will be free. So I will be the happiest to have these laws enacted so that we establish these institutions. Because some of you will be members of these institutions, especially the media authority. You will be represented there and there. Ladies and gentlemen, there are certain security informations that are not supposed to leak out. And if you happen to stumble on it, please sit on it. Don't say, I've been refused information. Meanwhile, you are looking for information which are highly sensitive. And these are security information. But when you write, Michael Makuei is a very arrogant minister, I will not leave you this time. I will take you to the court. As you know, we have not taken any of you up to now to the court. And this may be the one which, because any of you who is sometimes arrested by the security organs, when the case is brought to me, I say, okay, you are warned. Please don't do it again. Go. But when we release you, you would go and say, Shifta, I was just arrested for no reason. This time we will take you to the court so that the rest of your colleagues know that you had committed an offense, for which you must be punished according to the law. So if you don't want us to take you to the court, please stick to the ethics of your profession. We will not touch you. But if you cross the line, there will be no way. There will be no way for us not to take any action against you. In this hall, when we made the briefing, the first briefing, in this hall, in the presence of even the church, one of the journalists went and reported in one of the newspapers that Makuei said all the church is rebellious. I think some of you got it. And I took it up seriously. The church, the first people to protest were the church. Because when I talked, the church was here. The Secretary General of the South Sudan Council of Churches, plus Bishop Enoch Tombe, who is the chair of the faith-based group in Addis. They were here. And they were the first to protest. I wanted to take action against this person, but I was persuaded. This time I will not be persuaded again. There is a trend these days. Anybody who writes against the government, any newspaper that writes anything against the government is the newspaper that sells better. So there is a trend these days of mobilization and journalists being mobilized to continue writing as much as possible against the government. If that continues, we will continue to take people as much as we can to the court. We are not against the freedoms, but the freedoms should be according to the law. These principles which are being preached to us in this world, in the third world, are not applicable in the first world, for your information. They are not applicable in the first world. And here, because this South Sudan is a test ground, because we are being told, hey, you are a young nation. It is the nation which is young, but we are not young as individuals. We know what is happening in this world. And people should not just be blindfolded in the name of a young nation. That is not correct. People should not be blindfolded in the name of freedoms and democracy. That is not correct. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand it that way. We should not be carried away by the whims of the West because they believe that this is what is supposed to be. Even their journalists know it very well. They know it very well. The journalist who went into crisis with us last time, the French lady who was advising iRadio, is that how she can do it in France? There are rebels in France. Have they been disseminating the messages of the rebels in the government hell areas? No. But she did it. So we should try our level best to be first, to be nationalists. Any foreigner who comes to us any foreign journalist who comes to us must act in accordance with our laws. And any nationalist is automatically expected to abide by our laws. The same thing with any foreign nationalist foreign journalist who comes here. And anybody who goes against the law, irrespective of whether he or she is a South Sudanese or a foreign national, there will be no way, nothing will help him. Nothing will help him. Because issues of security, there is no joke on issues of security. I'm saying this because I don't want you to be taken by surprise at any time if you decide to go against the law. Bakita is one of the radios. Here is Michaelton. I had warned Michaelton. Michaelton, this direct air transmission is not correct. Because at times there is someone who can just decide to go on rampage and he says whatever nonsense and there will be no way of stopping him. And he would have passed his message. In fact, radio, that open air, what do you wake up Juba? Your wake up Juba. It is wake up Juba which woke you up, actually. Wake up Juba, people would call, and most of those who have been calling are those who are in the UNIMIS camps. Because I've been following it very closely. And they will just say whatever nonsense they have in mind. I called Michael and told him, Michael, I'm advising you this, you either introduce a system. Because in some media houses there is a system, even though it is a direct call, but there is a system whereby you receive the information, you put it within some seconds and you will be in a position to know exactly what is it. You can either push it aside and you bring in another, or if it is okay, then you pass it to the air. This, if you don't introduce this system, I'm advising that you record it and edit it. Radio Bakita committed the same mistake which was committed by iRadio and by the UNIMIS, what do you call it? Michear FM. They disseminated an information from the rebels. And people started talking in that language we know. The security organ decided to intervene because they had actually earlier warned them. They intervened, they shut down the radio and arrested the personnel. At the end, the editor of the news. Al-Muhim, this person was released. I understand now he's released. When I came here, this was the time when I learned that Michear Bakita is shut down. After investigation, he admitted that he had done it. He admitted, accepted that mistake, and he apologized. So the man was released, but they decided to keep the keys pending until they complete the investigation. And after completing the investigation, the papers will be brought to me. So I'm waiting for these papers to be brought to me, and it is there, and then that will decide on the fate of Bakhita Radio. Bakhita Radio is a foreign-funded, for your information, is a foreign-funded FM radio. And as I said earlier, he who pays the piper calls the tune. I was asked by the British ambassador about Radio Bakhita, and I said, and where do you come in to ask me about an FM radio which has just been shut down? Who are you? He said, well, you see, there are a lot of concerns being expressed. I said, by whom? Because they are the ones funding, and they want it to continue disseminating. It will not only be Mariah FM, but any radio will be operating in accordance with the terms on which it was established. Mariah FM, Bakhita was established to disseminate the gospel, and it must continue to disseminate the gospel and the gospel only. Any other FM radio must do the same. Any other FM radio must do the same. There is no question of mixing politics and religion. Here we have separated religion from the state. We are a secular state. There is no way after this we would allow any FM radio to operate out, even Mariah FM. Mariah FM was established to disseminate peace, and peace only. This is what we will do, so that everybody follows his life.
You have to go. He started crying. He was not crying for Al Jazeera, he was crying for his pocket. Okay? And then I told Nasbita National Security, if there is available plane by now, it was 4:15 in the afternoon. The last plane, and Nasbita Security, they call Matar, Gallo, if there is any plane, it should be now delayed until we come with Mamunadu. I'm not an arrogant person. If somebody call me an arrogant like Makuei, if you call him arrogant, he will take you to the court. Because of the balancing you are talking about, even the Nasbit Al Jazeera, they don't want balancing. When I tell them the view of our government, it is not air, if it is something recorded, unless it is live, so that it goes. Okay? There are journalists, international journalists, who have actually, who seems to have been siding with the rebels. When you are on a debate, like when I was with the debate with somebody called Johannes, BBC Arabic, question I am not asked simply because they can clean the government. So they make sure that they ask questions that you are supposed to be asked, they ask the rebel, so that the rebel blasts on the government, and then the government has no response. If you respond on it, then you are out of touch, because intermasal always all that. That was exactly happening. So if you wanted to balance the story, yeah, it's good, because if a journalist doesn't balance the story, it's difficult. But make sure that you are not the direct source, because if you are the direct source, then there is a problem here. Somebody attempting on the life of the president, okay? And I was in Kenya. I read it on social media. I was told that the son of John Garang, okay, was caught with a pistol in a hotel that is 6.5 miles away from the president. So we cannot connect him to be attempting on the life of the president. And then I said, what do we do? And I was told to deny this. So I came to deny on the basis that there's no any shared intelligence between the Republic of South Sudan intelligence and the Ethiopian intelligence. If I come out as an official to say that, yes, in fact, somebody was attempting on president life, it will bring disrepute between the two republics. And then we will be seen as ignorant, because the Ethiopian did not tell us that the president's life was in threat. Mabiorivi is a criminal, and he was found with a pistol that was not licensed in Ethiopia. It was up to him and the Ethiopian until the Ethiopian tell us whether he was attempting on the life of the president. And this is why I was told that, there are a lot of voices, there are a lot of this and that.
The laws that are coming are 3 bills. The media laws are 3. There is the Right to Information Act, and this is where you will have to be very careful, because if you don't understand that bill and you just say, I have the right of access to information, it's not all the information that you will access. Because there will be classified information that you will not access despite that law. And there is the Media Authority and there is the Broadcasting Corporation. These bills will be signed now into laws. So this is a task that will lie before us. We'll disseminate it as soon as these laws are out. The same thing with the National Security Law, which I don't know if it is now passed by the National Legislative Assembly. The security law is supposed to be passed because actually the security law complements the implementation and operationalization of the national security of the media bills, because it is there and then that you will be talking of certain informations under the national security law. There are certain information that are not supposed to be passed on to anybody. The media and the journalism, there is no way we can go without one another. So there is need for us to see how best do we move forward. And I think some of the issues which were not clear to us are now clear, and I hope that we will be moving forward. We don't need to nationalize the radios and the newspapers and whatever, because as soon as you nationalize, then you have crossed the line, you have gone into a different sector altogether. We are fully committed to the freedom of expression, and even if the government has its own media houses, it has its own newspapers, it has its own radios and TVs, whatever that comes from the government is not usually accepted by anybody. Whatever the government says, they will say, this is the government talking. This is a normal thing. This is why we are encouraging the private sector to come up with everything so that they talk, so that they say what cannot be said by the government. But it should be said also according to the law, whether it is written, whether it is in the radio, in the TV, in the newspapers, in the magazines, whatever. That must be according to the law. Capable of doing it. But the way I see it, it would be seen as if the government is actually interfering and trying in a way or the other to influence and interfere with the freedom of the media and expression. Because it's not difficult for us today to pay every newspaper, we facilitate them. We facilitate every FM radio and so forth and so forth. But as soon as we pay them, then we become we become the funders, and then these institutions will turn into will be pipers. So they must play our tune. And this is what we do not want. This is what we do not want. We want them to continue independent so that they continue to talk independently. Freedom. But as I stated earlier, yes, you have the right to exercise that freedom, but exercise it bearing in mind that you are a nationalist, you are a citizen of this country, and as such you are under duty to protect the interests of your nation. You can be a representative of any media house all over the world. You can be a correspondent. But nevertheless, being a correspondent doesn't mean that, because those people will be expecting you to say particular things under certain circumstances. If you don't say them, but now you are not cooperating. And if you say them, you have sold your nation, your country. So it is a question of balancing between the two different interests. We are not saying you should not be correspondents of foreign agencies. But yes, in the course of doing your job, bear your nation in mind, your country in mind. Because those people who will be paying you, well, definitely they will be expecting certain things to come from you. And the fact that I said that he who pays the piper calls the tune does not mean that I'm insulting anybody. I did not actually intend to insult anybody. But this is a statement of fact. If you are my employee, you must do what I want you to do. But these are realities of the world. There is no way I would pay you and then you go and work against me, or you do a different thing. You must do what I'm saying. And this is a reality. And if you are not being paid, if you are not a piper, then what is your problem? So these are realities, Mananu. Even your own employee, not a government employee, but if you are a businessman in the market, or a business person in the market, to be fair, then that employee must perform the functions assigned to him by his employer. And this is the situation. We are not against criticizing the government, as I stated earlier. It is this destructive criticism which is not wanted. But if you criticize a government objectively, a constructive criticism, this is what is needed. But when you just write because you want to be seen to be, so that the paper sells, and you write whatever, that of course is destructive. And this is what we don't want. We want a constructive criticism. And nobody will ever object or stand against any objective criticism, against a constructive criticism. Criticize, yes, this should have not been this way, but it should have been this way. Don't just say, well, this is wrong and should have not been there like that, full stop. What have you done now? This is what we don't want. And I think everybody agrees with me that we are not here for destructive criticism, but for constructive criticism. This is what we are saying. This question of balancing, there is no question of balancing. Yes. You cannot stand at ease and stand on attention at the same time, for those of you who are soldiers or who might have attended some sort of a training. Ma mumkin tagib safa utokun wagib intibah fi nafs al-waqt. Ma mumkin. And if you are standing at ease, lo inta wagib safa, now you are not a journalist. Yes. So here when you talk of you must yes, you can make your balance. But know that when you are balancing correctly, so that you don't step on the toes of others, including the government in which you are. We will not accept you calling a rebel, interviewing him. Zema, I read Obama Lena Kalamfi in the peace talks there, direct and live. And then you call the rebel and you just interview him live from there. That is a different thing altogether. You will be stepping on the toes of the government. Let us put it clearly, so that next time, Matagul, Walai, we were not told. We should be told as of now, so that when you commit that mistake, you know that you are doing it intentionally. As for as to how are we not dealing with the institutions, we are dealing with Mariah, with Bakhita Hassan, you are complaining. Muskida, Bakhita is an institution. We are dealing with it now, and you are telling us, no, don't close it. So for us not to close the institutions, we will deal with individuals. And if you say, don't deal with us, deal with the institutions, we will do so. Makalam kumda kan fi wahid zaman nas mashufi said people went hunting, and they went to hunt an elephant. Every time they will run after it, they go spearing it. And then when the elephant returns and it starts chasing them, they would run away. And then when it returns, they run after it. And then somebody stood and said, by the way, what are you doing? The elephant comes to you so that you kill it and you run away from it. And when it runs away from you, you run after it. What are you doing? So what I'm saying is this. If you are saying deal with the institutions, don't deal with us, we will do so. And if you say deal with us and leave the institutions, we will also do so. But for us, we would prefer to deal with the individuals who are actually in the institution, other than dealing with the institution. And this is why we will look into the case of Bakhita. But that should not be the only way. Because a day will come when we may have to close down some of these radios. Because if they continue to be intransigent and continue to agitate in flagrant violation of the laws of the Republic of South Sudan, then definitely we will not allow it to continue. So there are situations whereby we will be dealing with individuals, and there are situations whereby we will be dealing with Wake Up Juba does not necessarily need to be political. Because when it becomes political, that it becomes agitative. Otherwise, if it is handling economic issues, if it is handling social issues, if it is handling, listener's choice, we have no problem with it. And if it is spreading the gospel, being its main objective when it was established, we have no problem with it. But when it goes beyond its mandate, when it goes beyond its mandate, then definitely this is a violation of its own law, because it was established by law. And when we registered it when it was registered in the Ministry of Justice and licensed by the Ministry of Information, it was licensed as a faith-based FM radio, a Christian radio to disseminate the gospel. No more, no less. It's helpful because we are sending a signal to others. We are sending a signal to others that anybody who does not follow, his fate will be like that of Bakhita. Anybody in conflict with the law will face the law. So it is helpful. It has now created a concern, and people are asking, but why was it shut down? People will say it was shut down because it was disseminating a subversive literature. Yes. It was a subversive literature. So that is it. For steps against Sudan Tribune, of course, these are issues we cannot talk about them here. Yes, we are taking action against Sudan Tribune, but we will get it. But the problem is with you. You are the correspondents of Sudan Tribune. Yes. Where do they get that information? They get it from you. So, if you are telling us to deal with not to deal with the institution, but we will deal with you. Because we know who among you are contributors to the Sudan Tribune. So, that is it. Yes, it is through time of war, by the way. During wartime, things do not remain the same. By the way, you should not be surprised that a time will come when, if we declare a state of emergency, even most of your rights will be suspended. Yes. We are now at war. We have not yet gone that far. And if necessity requires, then even these rights which you are enjoying now will not be there. And when a state of emergency is declared, If a state of emergency is declared, it is only the right to life that will remain. Huh? Only right to life. Right of free expression, freedom of what? All these things will not be there. So let us enjoy these rights and freedoms. And let us make sure that the rebels, we should not disseminate the literature of the rebels so that they don't make us to tighten these rights more. When you go on reporting like Muhammad Al-Ado, or Muhammad Ado, who decided to go and interview Hilda Johnson, and Hilda Johnson told him that the enemy, that the rebels are just around the corner here.
The corner. 60 kilometers.
Just around the corner here, and people started running. It is true what he said. The population which is here is not the population which was with us.
It's a different population.
It's a different population. Otherwise, with our population which was with us in the liberated areas, the enemy can even be 5 miles away from us and we stay. But now, without even hearing the sounds of the heavy artillery, not the AKM, the population starts to run away. This is, of course, a situation where we cannot help. But it is anyway an unfortunate situation. The case of Muhammad Ado, when he was sent away from here, he found me in Addis, and I said, Muhammad, you are very lucky. If I was there, I would have arrested you. I would have kept him in his custody like those in the Egyptian custodies. Because this mess which is happening in the Arab world is the work of the media, and you must be very careful, by the way. What is happening in the Arab world now is the work of the media. It is a war of the media in the first place before it became a real action on the ground. The man who was sent away, the miskin who was killed in Iraq, alleging that there are nuclear weapons there, we were not there. You come to Libya, you come to Egypt, you go to even Syria now. All these are wars of the media, and this is Al Jazeera and others. This is why I wanted to arrest Muhammad Ado Kujiwa Kunfisijin. Should have been inside.
He was lucky.
He was lucky that I was not here. And this is what is happening now. All the media houses, now things have started to change. But those days when the coup d'etat failed here and the rebellion started, nobody was with the government of South Sudan. The government of South Sudan was the culprit. That must go. People were for a regime change. But we resisted it, and here we are now. Here we are now. But those of you whom I took to Bor and I took
Malakal.
I did not take that. I took people to Bor and to Rumbek.
Rumbega, yeah.
When I took you to Rumbek, those of you who went and you sent your reports, were they shown in the TV? It is only South Sudan Radio. We showed those arms. And all the media houses were sent. I took them there. I chartered 2 planes and took all the journalists there. But because there was a planned policy against the government, it was played down. Only South Sudan TV and radio played them. Only South Sudan TV played them. I asked some of you, and you said, well, we send it, but it is not shown over there. Because there was a policy. There was a policy that this government must go. And it is you who were being used. I don't want you to allow yourselves to be used, Ajama. Don't allow yourselves to be used. That media war, which is destroying the Arab world, we don't want it to be brought here to our country. it should stop there. If you are a correspondent, please do your job, but bear your country in mind. This is my message to you. National security arrests people. If you go to the constitution of the Sudan, of South Sudan, the constitution enumerates the competencies of the national security. One of them is the protection of the national security protection of the protection of the nation against any subversive activities, against any activities that are directed against the people and the government of South Sudan. These are there in the Constitution. It is those provisions now that are being translated into a law, but they are there in the Constitution. So they are acting in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. And it is those provisions now which are being translated into these laws. And in the absence of these laws, this does not mean that the provisions of the Constitution are not working. Not that only, but the Constitution says, it says, all the existing laws shall continue to operate until new laws are enacted. The existing law which was governing the national security law will continue to operate pending the enactment of the South Sudan National Security Law. So the National Security Law of Sudan, from which we emanated, continues to apply on you until the new law is enacted. So, let us acquaint ourselves with, let us study our constitution. Even now, there are some new Sudan laws that are still applicable. The new Sudan laws which we enacted when we were in the liberation struggle. As long as there is no new law enacted, that law continues to operate. For example, the NGOs law. People say there is a legal vacuum in the NGO. The NGO laws continue to operate until the new law is enacted. And this is one of our laws that existed before. When we are here to facilitate you, the government is under duty to facilitate all the journalists, all the media houses, to ensure that they perform their functions and duties in a conducive atmosphere. So, and I think this is what we have been doing. Comrade Ateny had been releasing some of you when you are arrested. Even me, I have been releasing some of you when you are arrested. But don't all the time try to go against the law and then you seek to be released. Don't go against the law because you know that Michael or Ateny will come for your rescue. We will not rescue you this time if we find that you are in conflict with the law. So our advice to you is that, yes, perform your functions and duties, but according to the law, so that you don't fall into conflict with anybody. Anybody who will be arbitrarily arrested, it is our duty to ensure that that person is not arrested, is released. Whenever you write a report, you should not only be writing and looking for the mistakes or the black parts of the story. That is not correct. You need to be fair also. If the government has done something good, admit it. Yes, it is an achievement and it has to be shown. But whenever Ateny has done anything good, then you just ignore him. Once he errs, but then and you erase all that he has done. This is not correct. So let us also keep a balanced reporting. You don't look for the mistakes of the government only, but look for the good parts also of the government and report them. This is how we expect you to balance it. And whenever you are reporting a mistake of the government, report it and come up with an alternative, or what is the solution? What do you propose? It must be seen to be a constructive criticism. Thank you very much.